Hi and welcome to this interview. I'm Yuri, and I'm an animal rights activist from Sweden. And so my pronouns is he. And uh, welcome, Ellen. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Ellen Ericksen, and I am residing in San Diego, California. And I am an animal rights activist, a vegan, a humane educator, and a voice for not just the animals, but the humans also. So
yeah.
I'm sorry.
So how did you get into animal rights? Like what led you into it?
Well, my story began at a very early age. I didn't know it was animal rights when I was about 4.5 years old. I was born and raised in New York City, and my mother had taken me to a Ringling Brothers circus. And as a young child, I have vivid memories of that day. And we went to see the circus, and overall, I thought it was a little entertaining, but I felt bad for the animals watching the circus. And then after the circus was over, we had an opportunity to go backstage and see the animals. And at that point, we saw the elephants, and I was very close to them. And I had a connection with one of the elephants there, and they were chained with a chain on their back leg to a wall with like a cuff around their ankle. And when I looked at the elephant and I was really close to her, I could tell that she was suffering. And then I looked at all the elephants, and it was obvious that they were not happy. And it was very upsetting to me as a young child. And I was crying, I was hysterical. I essentially had a meltdown, and my mother couldn't get me to stop crying, and it elevated to screaming, and I was very upset. And a police officer, a New York City police officer, came in. He asked my mom to basically shut me up, and I couldn't stop crying. And I was picked up by the officer and carried out of Madison Square Garden, and we were escorted out. So that was my first introduction to animal suffering. My entire life as a young child, I did have an issue with eating animals. I just didn't know what it was. My parents obviously served animals, and I, at mealtime, was always in trouble with my parents. And during meals, I figured out ways to hide my food, throw my food out, dump my milk down the sink when no one was around. So I've essentially had food issues my entire life related to eating animals. So jump ahead many, many years, and I became very active even in college, talking about animal rights, the environment, and the impact that it was having on our planet and what we were doing. And my very first speech in college was about animals, the ocean, pollution, and the future of our planet. And my first big speech in college, I was labeled a fringe activist by one of my professors. So that was my early start. And I got more involved as I got older, and I became more aware of the issues that were going on, not just in animal rights, but in human rights also. They are totally interconnected, and that's still true today. And of course, everything I talked about in the ocean is happening now with dead zones, pollution, and what's happening to our environment as a result of what the humans are doing.
Yeah.
So here I am years later. I'm a very active activist. I am very vocal, and I like to organize protests. I like to educate people, and I do like to disrupt. I think it's an important part of activism. But there's also another part where we need to educate and let people know what's going on. We have an obligation as human beings, as vegans, as activists, to educate others at all ages.
Mentioning education, you're certified in plant-based nutrition, right?
I am a certified plant-based in nutrition, and it does help me a lot when I speak. I do like to speak. I've been in the colleges here in San Diego at UC San Diego. I've been to junior colleges and high schools and even a middle school. So, there has to be a balance with my activism and education. And I have found a good balance, and it's been very successful. I'm very happy with doing both.
Has it helped you, like all the knowledge being in nutrition, um, certified plant-based nutritionist, when it comes to the activism, when you
Oh,
talk to
yeah.
people?
I think it definitely makes me more credible. I mean, a lot of people, there are a lot of vegans that are not activists, and there are activists that are not vegans. So there's an opportunity to educate on both sides. And, having that certification does make me more credible. And personally, it makes me healthier for myself as a human being. I am perfectly healthy, and I never get sick, and I eat a very balanced, well meal, and that helps promote what I'm doing also. Yeah.
So, what does animal liberation mean to you? Like the whole activism?
Liberation, activism, and making a change and an impact is the biggest part of my life. And I strive for that daily. I do and try to do something every single day in my life, whether I'm grocery shopping or in my work environment or my activism here in San Diego, because there's plenty of animal cruelty here just in San Diego at SeaWorld, with the San Diego Zoo, the racetrack in the summer with horse racing. So we're kept pretty busy here in San Diego. In fact, I had a SeaWorld protest yesterday because they are still opened and promoting themselves as a great business with, the great treatment of their animals, which is a total blatant lie. So yeah, activism and total liberation for animals is my goal. And that's something we should all be striving to achieve, is that end result where we're not using, eating, abusing animals, because there's no need for it. And they need our help. They can't liberate themselves. So we have to be their advocates. We have to speak out for them and educate, and in any form necessary, whether it's disruption, activism, education, things happening in schools at every level, even starting in elementary school. It is never too young to educate and get people to also share this message. It's an important message, and if we don't start doing it and making changes, the demise of this planet is lurking, behind us. And people need to take this seriously about what's going on. But for me, it's the cruelty, abuse, and the suffering of the animals. That's my driving point, is, what they're feeling, as like I felt at a very young age. So
So you mentioned like doing something every day, and you seem so passionate and devoted to animals. So um, how do you say keep up momentum and not get all burn out or?
yeah, I mean, burnout is a big thing for a lot of people in animal rights. It's not easy knowing what truly happens to the animals. And a lot of people that have been in activism have had to leave, take a break. It is wearing on you mentally and physically. And you have to find that balance. For me, I have found the balance. Being more active actually is better for my health than not doing something. So, even if it's just going to the grocery store and hanging out in the dairy department and, waiting for people to grab a carton of milk is a great opportunity to have a conversation with them and talk to them about what they're purchasing and giving them alternatives that are sitting right next to the dairy milk that they're buying. So I like to have conversations with people when I'm out and about, and, I'll wear clothing that will spark a conversation. And sometimes I shop with a poster in my grocery cart. I have several posters with baby animals on them. I have one with a little puppy and one with a little calf. And it says, why love one and eat another? So my car is a mobile activist car. I have signs, banners, literature. I can do anything in a moment's notice out of my car. So I always go prepared.
Sounds like you're both doing everyday activism and then real activism, or how do you say? But like, what's the most memorable activism moments that you had? Like,
Well, there's been quite a few. One memorable one, we had a circus come to town many years ago, and where they abuse animals. It was a smaller family-run circus, and they had a horrible reputation for being very aggressive with activists in other areas in the country. And they came to San Diego, and I decided to organize protests while they were here. And they were here for about a month. So I had about 52 protests lined up because they went to multiple cities in San Diego, and I just followed them around. And the first protest area that they were at, we had activists there, and they were very upset we were there. And they were aggressive. They had a clown that was drunk half the time. And we had a lot of law enforcement because we had a lot of threats from them. And we just stayed strong. We protested, but we also educated the people going into the circus because they had no idea about the cruelty. Same thing at SeaWorld. People go to these places, to the zoo, to SeaWorld, because they love animals. They want to see the animals. They just don't see the backside of what we see and what's involved in getting animals to perform stupid tricks for them. So education is a big part of it. And a lot of people, once they hear about the circus or even the zoo, when I'm out there doing education, they end up not going. They turn around and leave. And we had the same thing here with Ringling Brothers in San Diego. They did not want us protesting on the property where they were at. They filed legal motions to keep us off the property. And all we wanted to do was educate the public about what goes on with Ringling Brothers. But getting back to the first circus, they were here, and we just stayed constant. Like I said, I had 52 protests. I showed up for all 52 of them. And after basically tormenting them and really affecting their business through education, they never came back to San Diego again. And this happened in multiple cities where they were at with other activists, and they eventually stopped using animals in their circus. And they have not been back to San Diego. SeaWorld, a little bit more difficult here in San Diego. That is a goal right now, is to get orcas in San Diego and other SeaWorlds to seaside sanctuaries and have the other animals, placed in their natural environment. And that has been a long battle here in SeaWorld. Even before I started my protests, I have, girlfriends that were protesting out there 40 years ago. But, the public is waking up, thanks to social media, the movie Blackfish, and people realizing that animals are suffering. As far as Ringling Brothers, when they were still in business and they ultimately stopped their circus after almost 150 years of crazy circus acts and extreme animal torture, they did stop. That business did shut down. And eventually, when they used to come to San Diego, they didn't come back after 2 years before they closed, because I found them doing some illegal things, and I ended up pressing charges with the city and the venue where they were at, and they ultimately were fined, them and the venue, and they never came back to San Diego after that event, and then they eventually, went out of business. So, there's small victories, little things that really make a difference for the animals. We had a local slaughterhouse here in San Diego years ago. It was a smaller slaughterhouse, and there were several of us that were out there every weekend for a very long time, educating the people, exposing all the things that they were doing wrong environmentally, child abuse issues, having young children at the slaughterhouse. And, we were a group of very strong, primarily women, that were dedicated, and they eventually did go out of business and shut down. So, all these little things do add up. And, we have activists all over the planet now, and, we are making a difference. It's, but there's still so much more work that has to be done, obviously. So, it's important that we have these exchanges to where we can share ideas and help one another to become better activists and better human beings, and, make a change that really needs to happen on a global scale now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the Ringling Brothers. That I remember there was this movie called Water for Elephants with some really good actors, and you could really see animals suffering in this movie. It wasn't really a good commercial for the circus.
Yeah, I never saw the movie. I have a hard time watching movies like that, and where people are going to pay money to watch animal abuse. And yeah, I don't think that movie did very well once it came out. I'm sure it wasn't a money-making movie.
Yeah.
But, everything that happened there is true. And we used to have another animal torturers here in San Diego. There was a company called Half Trunk Will Travel, and they owned elephants, and they were exposed, excuse me, with undercover video of one of the owners during some training sessions beating the animals and using bull hooks on them. And they were very active here in San Diego. When the San Diego County Fair was here, they would have their elephants there. I believe they had 3 or 4 elephants there, and they gave elephant rides at the San Diego Fair. And when I found out about them being there, I started targeting them and had many protests out there. And I had several encounters with one of their trainers there also, because I would go in and we would protest inside the fair in front of their exhibit. And one of their trainers actually came after me with a bull hook. I mean, was going to strike me with, what they strike the elephants with. And after years of exposing them with some other animal rights groups, they finally stopped going to the San Diego County Fair. And they were locally based here in Southern California. And they eventually left the state of California because of activists. And I believe they're in Texas now. And in fact, I just heard that one of their elephants that I had several encounters with did die this week. So, they've just moved their business to, an area where they can get away with it. But they're gone from California now. And that was, a big accomplishment for activists in California, getting them out. Yeah.
It's like undercover footage. When they discover that, then people kind of see the truth. But it's almost like the Matrix with the red pill and the blue pill.
Yeah.
It's like you get the choice. And I was going to ask you what made you go the extra step to becoming an activist. But it's so obvious when you tell all these stories, because you saw the information, but you also chose to listen to it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to experience it, and then you can feel it so deep within your soul that how can you not do something once you know the truth? It's like once you know, you can't not know. And there's stuff I've seen that I don't share on social media for legal reasons. Once I've seen something, I say to myself, I wish I hadn't seen that. It's so horrible. And, those memories never go. And that's what motivates me. And that's what keeps me from burning out. Like I can't burn out. So, if I feel like, I'm at that point, I have to step back and do self-care. Whether it's, engaging with friends or, going out and walking for 7 miles or, just detaching and maybe doing some meditation and listening to soothing music. But not being an activist is not an option. So you got to figure out how you can take care of yourself so you can continue to advocate and stay healthy during it. And it can be done. You can find that balance,
Yeah, I guess that people might think it's too, how do you say, it's too painful to see the truth. But I stumbled upon Socrates by accident and just read about, his philosophy was that knowledge comes with virtue, that with information you get these moral values.
Yeah.
And somehow I guess people that don't go there or just put the lid on, they don't want to recognize the problem because it's too much. It's just like a bomb exploding in the face.
Yeah, it is painful. to see, what happens. 3 years ago, the movie Dominion was completed, and I had met the producers at the animal rights conference here in Los Angeles. And I had talked to them about bringing the movie here to San Diego to debut it here in the country. And I saw the movie at the conference, and it was gut-wrenching to watch. It was years of footage undercover in slaughterhouses in Australia. And it was, I mean, I didn't think I could be affected again by a movie like that, but I was. And I made arrangements. I had a couple friends here in San Diego, and we scheduled the movie to be here. We rented a huge movie theater here in San Diego. We sold tickets, which we had to do so we could pay for the theater, although they did donate a lot of stuff to us. And we had a showing here of Dominion on the big screen. And we had, I think, 250 people come. And I told my vegan friends, even though I wanted them to come, to purchase tickets for people that were still eating and wearing animals, because they're the ones that needed to see the movie. We already got it. But a lot of vegans did come, and they did bring non-vegans, which was really important. Some of them didn't even know what the movie was about. And, prior to the movie, I spoke to the whole audience about what they were going to see, how difficult it was to see, but how important it was for them to view this movie. I had also printed up some pamphlets regarding self-care after the movie, because I knew that a lot of people would possibly be damaged after, watching this on a big screen with, sound that, you didn't even have to watch the movie, just hearing it, you could figure out what was going on. And so, everyone got a pamphlet about, how to manage themselves after watching something like this, because a lot of these people had never seen a movie like this. And then, I was watching the people watch the movie, and it was really, really difficult to watch them. They were suffering. And after the movie was over, you could hear a pin drop in the theater. And then I did speak to everyone about self-care, and people were crying, people were sick. I mean, they were clearly disturbed, but they had to see the movie. And it was a successful showing. Did people stop eating animals after seeing that movie? I had people come up to me after and said they were never going to eat another animal again. But there were other people there that saw the same thing that everybody else saw, and they're still eating animals. So, there are humans that you can share the truth with, show them the truth, show them statistics, talk to them about pain and suffering, and yet they still make a choice to be part of that pain and suffering. And those are the hardest people to connect with. I've talked to scientists, neuroscientists, people that research the brain and try to figure out why some people, when they see this truth, it really affects them, and others, it has no impact on their life at all. So, I had to realize years ago that some people are never going to change. I can't figure it out. I don't know why. They claim to love animals. And so, that kind of led me on my path, to get my certification in plant-based health, because if I can't reach them from the pain and suffering angle, I can talk to them about their own bodies and how to change their diet so that they become healthier. And for me at this point, 15 years ago, I would never say this, but at this point, I don't care why they stop eating animals, just as long as they stop. If they do it, for just their own intention, for their, diet and well-being, that's fine. They're not consuming animals. But for me, and, they know, even when I speak to large groups about, diet, I do manage to sneak in pictures of animals that do suffer, because they need to know who they're eating. And it's not what they're eating, it's who they're eating. So,
Yeah, I guess they're used to seeing these pictures, typical in Swedish butter commercials, with a beautiful, perfect cow that looks like a supermodel of the cows, and on a green field that is perfectly green with a blue sky that is perfectly blue, and everything is just like Photoshop picture.
Oh,
and
yeah.
People think that this is the way it is for all the cows.
Well, it's not that way for any cows. Several years ago, and it happened on a Mother's Day, as a matter of fact, I was on a road trip and I saw a dairy farm. And I thought, well, I'm going to drive by there and see what it's about. So, from the front, it looked, it was a beautiful house in the front, beautiful grounds, big flowing trees, looked like a painting. And then, they said they were organic dairy. So, and I was alone, and I drove back onto the property. And I parked my car, and of course, there was a feedlot there with probably over 1,500 cows. And, I sat in my car and I didn't know whether I should get out of my car. I didn't know if it was safe, but I really wanted to see the cows. So I got out of my car and I went up to one area where there were very large cows there. They were all lactating, obviously, because their udders were humongous. And they were the most beautiful cows I had ever seen in my life. And I felt so bad for them, but I felt so good being there with them and to experience them. And I had conversations with them. And then someone had come out from the office, and he says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I drove by. I just love cows." And I told him I had never seen a cow in real life, and I wanted to be with the cows. I didn't have any vegan stuff on or anything. I just looked like an average citizen. And I was asking him about the farm and what they do there. And he said, "Well, take your time, you can spend time with the cows, it's fine." And then I was getting ready to leave, and I had walked into his office, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to leave. Thanks, for letting me on your property." And yeah, I was upset, witnessing these cows. And then he had asked me if I'd ever seen cows being milked. And I said no, even though, of course, I have in, movies and stuff. So he took me to an area on the farm where they milk the cows. And, he told me not to have my camera on, but I did have my camera on. And I was so upset. So they herd in cows like 24/7. They just cycle them in, they cycle them out. There's so many of them there. And he took me to an area where there were cows on both sides, and they were backed in and they were hooked up to machines. You could hear the machinery. You could see the cows suffering. I could see the milk being sucked out of the animals, and it was bloody. It stunk in there, and the cows were not happy. I mean, you know, a lot of them, he told me, he says, don't get too close to the cows. We've had workers get kicked in the face. And so I was able to get some, you know, great footage of the cows, but it was so disturbing to see, you know, what was going on. And it was dirty in there. There were cockroaches everywhere. And I mean, it wasn't a clean, sterile environment, you know, like they would lead you to believe. And I got some great pictures of these working mothers, because that's what they are. And, you know, I left, and it was upsetting. And I went back again another time when I was in the area.
Oh, oh crap. We lost the connection, I think. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm on my phone now. I don't know what happened on my other device. Anyway, I had to drive to where the babies were, and two of the workers took me, and it was gut-wrenching to see these three babies. So there were three cows there. Two were, let me put my phone down. Hold on, I'm sorry. Two were male cows, and there was a female baby cow there also. And I don't know why I can't jump on. Anyway, they let me go back with the calves, and one of the mother cows was on the other side of a barrier. And, you know, I was talking to the workers about the calves, and you know, he told me they were taken from the mothers in the morning when they were born. And that I asked them, you know, if they got to nurse. And he said, no, that's never allowed. And one of the calves was laying on the ground, and the female calf, and she couldn't get up. And I asked him what was wrong with the calf. And he told me her legs were broken during the birthing process. And they all partake in that process. And so I spent some time with her, and I asked them if I could have her and, you know, take her to a place to get help. And of course they said no. So I asked them what happened to the male cows, you know, what's going to happen to them. And he told me that they would be sent to a slaughterhouse either later that day or the next day. Anyway, you know, when I get video like that and people don't believe me about the dairy industry, I show these pictures of these cows and the babies and what does go on at these, you know, so-called compassionate organic dairy farms, which is a big lie. So I have been back there a few other times, so I could spend time with the cows, and they are still operational. It's horrible.
It's like you really dug into the industry and saw it with your own eyes, even recorded it, and people might not have the same experience. And when you talk to people in your activism, how do you like bridge the gap, you know, informing them, or how do you choose what way is the best to reach out to them?
Well, you know, I know people that are vegetarians, and they drive me a little bit more crazy than people that eat animals, because they kind of get what's going on, but they can't make that change to eliminate all animals in their diet.
And, I have vegetarians tell me that they only drink milk that come from, benevolent, dairies where, the cows are treated right. And, I have to tell them that it's a big lie in the industry, from these dairy farms that say, that they take good care of the cows. And, they don't understand, these people that, after the cows are milked to death, literally, that they are slaughtered and that their babies are taken from them. And I have had a lot of vegetarian friends now that could not give up, cheese, that are now vegan, because you just have to keep talking about it and sharing the truth about what's going on. So, if I have to pull out pictures and show them, it's fine. It's fine, but it's a big lie, and people are so gullible about what they see on television. And, with marketing, these places are clever on, how to get people, sucked into the industry thinking, oh, it's not that bad, right?
Yeah, with tons of tasty products as well, and they put dairy in all the things you can buy, in medication and candy, and
Yeah.
so you can basically it's hard for us vegans to find anything that is vegan, because there's so much animal products.
It's so easy to be a vegan now. I mean, there's like no excuse to eat animals anymore. There's so many great products out there. It's so mainstream. And like I said, I'll hang out and lurk in the dairy department. I'll plant myself there for an hour. I don't care. When I see people shopping with their children, buying dairy products, I ask them if they know that there are alternative products that they can be consuming that is healthier, and not just for them, but, for cows. And 9 times out of 10, they will leave with a vegan product, whether it be, milk, cheese, or, creamer for their coffee. So, you just got to take the extra step. I have no problem talking to people. I don't have a lot of fear in my life. So, I will talk to anybody.
Yeah, you mentioned so much like new products, and it's easy being vegan. I just have to add, in Sweden right now, it's just new products every day in the supermarkets, and the milk alternatives are like tons, and there are like so many of them.
Oh yeah.
There's more than dairy.
Oh, exactly.
So it's like super easy to, and I have allergies as well, but it's still easy for me to find stuff. So there's no excuse really, but.
Yeah, like, I'll have people saying, oh, I'm buying, milk without lactose in it because I'm, lactose intolerant. And I'm like, there's no such thing. I said, you have problems with milk because you're not a cow. Dairy milk is for baby cows, not for humans. And why do adult humans, drink milk even? I mean, there's no, dietary thing that says it's healthy to drink dairy milk. In fact, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah. We talked about activism a little bit, and I was kind of curious about the method, like how to reach out to people. We talked a little bit about it, but what type of activism do you think is most effective, or what do you say?
I think it's all effective, no matter what anybody's doing, whether, like I said, it's disrupting, protesting, educating. I have a girlfriend here. We have gone to events where we set up a vegan booth, where there are people there for one animal and they eat others. So with the local humane society here, they have a walk for animals twice a year. And after years of issues with them, because I used to go to their event to, leaflet and give out information about the animals, and they didn't like that. They thought I was disrupting their event. So after having a meeting with them, we came to a conclusion that instead of me going there disrupting, that they would give me a booth and I could do outreach at their event, which was great. I mean, I had to negotiate even if I didn't want to, just to have that opportunity. So, there's thousands of people that go there, with their dogs, and we're very well received there. People are glad that we're there. And we have this big, beautiful booth with a big vegan banner in the back. And we have literature regarding everything, whether it be, SeaWorld, dairy, the racetrack, and, and how they can eat more humanely. And we have lots of signs, why love one and eat another. And that's been very successful. So I think, being an activist, there's so many things that you can do. I mean, a lot of people aren't comfortable being out on the streets and disrupting, but there's other educational things you can do. There's a lot of social online activism that you can do to inform. And, the key is just to do something every day.
Yeah.
The animals never get a day off. So, we don't get a day off either. That's my philosophy.
Yeah, like these interviews. People can do interviews as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's a way to get out there. And, I'm waiting for in class back at UCSD. I've been invited back to speak there to the students, which I love to do. And, I got involved a few years ago with some high school students here, and they asked me to come on their campus, to speak about animals. And, they wanted me out there a lot. And I told them it's better if I teach them how to advocate for themselves, because I can't be there all the time. So, I spent time with them, and I spoke to a lot of kids at this high school. And, this group, they eventually, I told them how they could advocate at lunch, how they could get food there, how to do vegan outreach at, the lunchtime. And they were very successful. I think I went out there 4 or 5 times. And they had support from one of their teachers. And, they got a lot of pushback also. It's in an area in San Diego where they abuse and kill a lot of animals for food. And, that's my goal, is to get into these schools, teach students how to advocate, and then move on to the next school. And it's been successful even here at UCSD. And I love working with the students. It's great. And a lot of them come to my protests also.
Nice.
So it's a good thing.
Mentioning students and universities, you had some protests against animal testing at UCLA in their research labs, right? Why was that important?
Well, we've been protesting out at UCLA against vivisection for years. There's one event once a year that we're at UCLA where we march through the campus, we make a lot of noise, we disrupt, we educate, we go to the chancellor's building and we protest out in front. And they do horrible things to the animals at UCLA and other UC schools here in San Diego, where they do animal testing. UCLA is a large animal abusing school because of their treatment with primates and other animals. And, some of the researchers there have been doing the same research over and over and over again for years. And they get a lot of funding and make a lot of money off their research. And we go to their houses, and I haven't been out there for a while because of the pandemic, but I have friends, and we go to the researchers' houses. We do shame them in front of their neighbors because their neighbors don't even know what they do. And, that has to continue.
How do they respond when you do that?
Well, the police are usually there. We've been detained at several of these, home demonstrations. They are not illegal. And, the vivisectors, of course, don't like us there. They don't want to be shamed in their neighborhood. They live in very affluent neighborhoods because they make a lot of money on their research with animals. So, that type of activism does need to happen, but it needs to happen with the students on the campus of UCLA because, a lot of people don't even know what's going on in those buildings unless they're in pre-med or pre-dental or in, biology major. But if you're, a political science major, you don't know what's going on in those neuroscience buildings. And they keep it very well protected and guarded. You can't just go in and see the animals. And it's the same thing at UC San Diego and, UC Berkeley and all the other, University of California campuses, and at colleges and universities all over this country. There is widespread animal testing, which does nothing for the humans. It's ridiculous, wasted life of animals and torture that needs to stop. I mean, it needs to stop. So, educating and, that's why I'm happy to be involved, with UCLA right now. And hopefully, we can kickstart and jumpstart a program with students that are on campus to, educate the other students on that campus about what's going on and get this to end. It needs to stop.
Do you feel that demonstrations and involvement with the UCLA has made any progress?
I do. They just need to be more frequent. It can happen once a year. It has to be something that goes on routinely. This has to happen all the time out there. It's not a yearly event. It should be a daily event. Students on the campus could be leafleting and having discussions every single day on campuses where they're testing animals. It needs to come from within. So
how can students put pressure and encourage UCLA to drop the animal testing?
They definitely can organize, get together with the chancellor, the professors, bring awareness to the other students and just expose them to the media and, disrupt that campus, whatever it takes. It needs to stop. And through education, disruption, protests, meetings, with the board at UCLA and, finding, better options in their research and not use animals. And we know that, computer modules now are much more effective for research than animals' bodies. And every animal that is tested on is killed. And their whole life up until that moment that they're killed is nothing but pain and suffering. And it's extreme. I mean, can you imagine being an experiment on your body while you're alive and awake and conscious. It's horrible. It's just horrible. And, big pharmaceutical companies, stand to make billions of dollars off of this animal research. It's a sick cycle of corruption and money and deceit. And it's horrible. And our government funds, these tests also. This grant money comes from the governments. So, it's a multi-layered problem in this country. I know a lot of companies and schools overseas are not testing on animals anymore because they know it's not effective. But it's all about the money here. And, like I said, they have a big medical center at UCLA. There is a lot of testing, and the same thing in San Diego. It's associated with a lot of hospitals locally, and the VA hospital here, which also does testing on animals. San Diego area is one of the largest biomedical research areas in the world now. There are over 500 companies here that test on animals. It is very big business.
It's like exploiting animals to the fullest, and talking about that. How were the other demonstrations with the SeaWorld and horse race demonstrations?
Yeah, they're effective. We have to be out there for the animals. The SeaWorld protests are pretty benign. We just hold signs and, educate. The racetrack where the horses are a little bit escalated because we have contact with the human beings that are going to the races. And they do not like us there disrupting their fun outing day. But we have changed a lot of minds out at the racetracks, and the racetracks in this country are hurting financially. It is a very corrupt business, and with a lot of animal abuse, drug abuse, not just with the horses, but the jockeys and the trainers, and a lot of organized crime. I mean, there's a little bit of everything in horse racing. And we have some great advocates here in California and all over this country trying to make differences with our government, with our state senate. And I have met here locally in San Diego with city council, the mayor, some of our state senators. And, we have to stay engaged. So, we set up appointments and we go in and talk to our local officials and state officials to let them know what goes on at the racetrack. And, we need to have bans put in and bills passed, but that is a very long and expensive process. And it takes years for change like that to happen. So in the meantime, we have to impact their business. And that's what protesting does. We can hit them in their pocketbook, being there and protesting and advocating.
What's been the best and the worst reactions while doing these protests?
Well, I'll tell you, those people do not like me. And I now wear pepper spray to most of my protests with horse racing because I have been assaulted at the racetrack by, counter protesters and even people that go to the racetrack. And I've been out there for years. People are sick of seeing me there. I had a woman a couple summers ago, that I've seen these people there for so many years. I feel like I know them because they're always the same people that go to the racetrack. And I had an older woman come up to me, I think it was 2 or 3 summers ago. And, I wasn't even holding a sign. I was just standing there and she walked up to me and hit me. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? She goes, she says, I'm sick of seeing your face here every single year. And I'm like, you can't hit me, you know? So, the police came and, it was a big commotion. And I ended up not pressing charges against her because I didn't want to spend a couple days in court losing, work over it. But, people, that abuse animals also abuse humans. And they have no problem, striking an animal or striking a human. And this is a woman that pretty much told me if she had a knife, she would have plunged it into my neck. So this was, an older woman who, didn't look like a psychopath, but, I'm on high alert at, the racetrack protests when we go inside. And, I let people know before the protest, that there is a little bit, it's a riskier protest to be at. So people, my goal when I organize protests is for everyone to be safe. I don't want anyone ever coming to one of my protests feeling like they're not safe there. So that's, my goal is for activists to come because they want to be there because they're so passionate about it. But their safety and well-being is my primary concern. Yeah. And we're gearing up for the summer now. The racetrack is opening July 16th. I have a meeting with the police and security out at the racetrack in a few weeks so we can game plan, for me, safety. We need to be protected also at these protests. So I usually meet with them and their attorneys before the races start. So we have some clear defined rules and, scenarios that could come up and how we can get protection as activists.
I guess rules and the extra information is especially important for new activists that don't know how it goes and what's going on.
Exactly.
And what advice would you give to students and people who want to get involved in helping animals?
Well, the most important thing is to know the law. Know what your rights are and how to advocate for yourself. And, the second thing is how to stay safe at a protest. And when I have people come to my protests and I've never seen them before, I talk to them about how they can remain safe, what the rules are, and, how to react or not react if, they are approached by someone, especially at the racetrack, because the people there are very aggressive. So, we've had years of very safe, effective protesting out there. And I'm looking forward to going back out there. This summer, I spend all my weekends at the racetrack every summer. It's very important.
Yeah. It's there's no more questions, so I have to thank you so much for being with us, and really appreciate you a lot. And thanks for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, thanks for interviewing me. If I can do anything to help anyone on their journey, becoming a vegan or an activist, people can call me anytime they want. I'm available to anybody if they need help. And I'm more than happy to counsel and teach people. And, I'm not saying I know everything and my way is the right way, but, I like to stay engaged with people. And, for the younger generation, to make a difference, because us older activists aren't going to be here forever. And we have to teach the younger activists what we know so they can continue the work when we're long gone. It's very important.
Yeah, it's really important to exchange information and the
Mhm.
experience. And you've given us a lot to think about and a lot of advice. So thanks
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, there's all levels of activism, whether, you know, you're comfortable doing it online, if you want to leaflet, if you want to protest, and then there's different levels of protesting. And if you want to disrupt, there's something for everyone, you know, to stay involved and feel like that they are making a difference, because people need to feel like, you know, what they're doing is important and it is making a difference. And it's all very important work.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for watching, and we'll stay tuned for the next BOS Talks interview.
Thank you again. I'm
Thank you.
really glad we're all connected now. It's very important.
Yeah.
Thank you.